Hey there, berries. Welcome to the 11.9 support tier list. Now, for this one, I've changed a lot on the tier list. The tier list is now going to be catered towards iron to gold players. I've done a lot of thinking over the past couple of weeks and been playing on the NA account that I have, which is currently sitting in plat. But I did a lot of games in gold, and it kind of made me reevaluate not only the NA meta, but also how you should be climbing in solo queue. And I believe that in the past I have probably leaned more too much more towards enchanters for you to climb in solo queue, just because of the position that I'm in my main accounts, and I'm used to having better AD carries. I'll go through the tier list and explain all the changes. There's quite a few changes in terms of the actual tier list itself, but it should be more catered now towards people that are gold and below. If you're plat and higher, I'll still mention some key picks that you can play in solo queue, which will do pretty well for you. But the actual standing of where the champions are on my tier list now are catered for gold minus. I hope that makes it clear. I'll probably give a brief message again before going into the tier list so that the people that skipped ahead still get the message. So going into the actual patch itself, 11.9, there's a few changes. So the item nerfs are going to be affecting the mainly like stuff like Alistair, that was largely taking the Dead Man's Plate and the Turbo Chem Tank. Also Bard, I believe, was also taking Dead Man's on a regular basis, and maybe one or two other supports as well. So some nerf hits there. Moonstone's getting buffed this patch. It was slightly underwhelming. Surely has been standing out as like the key item mainly to lean towards. So the plus 10 heal is welcome on that, on the Moonstone proc itself. Nothing else really to mention there in terms of items. Going into the nerfs here, we have a notable one here. The Jinx nerf is kind of big, because it means that her Q, those rockets that do AoE in the laning phase and throughout the game, they were critting for 200%, and now that's going down to 175. So pretty sizable Jinx nerf for this patch. We'll see how that affects the win rate, but it probably will go down a percentage or something like that. In terms of Gragas, Gragas support was occasionally played. That got hit by a decent nerf as well. I think that was more leaning towards top laners though, but it's going to affect the support role, as you were maxing that E first, and you still will want to if you're playing Gragas support, but you're losing 20 damage there on max rank, which kind of sucks. Going into the champion buffs now for the support role, there's a couple of things to mention here. Kog'Maw is getting buffed, and Lulu's getting buffed, so we might see some more Kog'Maw Lulus. The Lulu buff is decent. It's 1 second off the cooldown on your W, and the attack speed as well goes up by 5% on the first point. I think that the main thing to look at is the cooldown reduction going down, because that also affects the polymorph, not just the Whimsy. So Lulu gets a pretty nice buff here. It's just a nice buff for Lulu, honestly. Taric getting buffed here as well, but honestly this one's insulting. He's actually getting a bug fix. Well, not even sure it's technically a bug, but Taric is actually getting nerfed overall this patch. So Taric's Q mana cost is going from 70 to 110 down to 70 to 90, but honestly you only kept 2 points in Q early and you maxed Q last, so unless you're level 17, 18 and 15, 17, 18, this buff isn't going to affect you. And when's the last time you've seen a level 18 or a 17 Taric in solo queue? So insulting buff for a champion that urgently needs attention. His bug fix or change is that his stun can't be used when Master Yi alpha strikes. So if you're familiar with the Taric Yi combos, that's no longer a thing now. So I mean, yay, but honestly they really urgently need to now look at Taric being buffed completely. Like this change is insulting. It is. It is insulting, especially to a champion that I enjoyed playing a lot in the past. So hopefully in the next couple of patches, I'll look at buffing Taric properly. So those are the changes for this patch. Overall, nothing too crazy. But as I said, I spent the time revamping the tier list quite a bit. So starting at tier 5, I got the kind of like some of the usual suspects there. I did move Vel'Koz up. I believe I left him at tier 5. I've now moved him up to tier 4. And then once we get to tier 3 here, I'll let you have a quick look at the tier 4. I'll just talk about why I made these changes. So when we get up this tier list, you're going to see a lot of different changes. You're going to see more of an emphasis on AP mages. I know, let me explain for all the people that love playing enchanters and tanks. So right now, Brand and Zyra in particular, they're doing exceptionally well in solo queue, particularly between Iron and honestly low plat. As you get higher towards the Diamond, the Brand will fall off. Zyra still maintain okay. But that correlates as well with the other AP mages as well. So I bumped Vel'Koz up from here into tier 4. The Xerath as well has actually been bumped all the way up to tier 2. I'm not going to try and go through this too quickly, but because there are a lot of changes. And we've moved things like Yuumi down to tier 3. So upon discovery of, it's been a really long time since I've had an account in the lower ELOs. I wouldn't say it's low ELO, being in gold is still top 25% or something like that. But it was a bit of an eye-opener into the situation with the support role in those low ELOs, if I can just be blunt. I don't believe playing an enchanter is a good idea. So like anything like the particularly the ones that multiply AD carry effects. So like Yuumi, for example, she has an attack speed steroid. Lulu, for example, that amplifies the AD carries abilities. I would not recommend playing those champions until at least gold. Yuumi, I would say probably don't bother playing her until plat. So there's a huge change of what I used to say on the tier list, and I'm open to say, like, I was probably, it's been an eye-opener. I regret recommending a couple of champions because the majority of people watching this tier list are somewhere between Iron and Gold. There's a few people in the comment section below, like in the previous tier lists, that have been insulted that I haven't put like X champion at tier 1. Like the Bard and the Thresh in particular, but they are super high ELO picks. Like if you are a Diamond Plus player, Thresh and Bard should be something in your, in your kit to be able to pull out if needed. So where does that leave us? We've even got like the Nico now that in tier 3. I believe I put her in tier 5 originally. Like her win rate in those lower ELOs are very good. It's around about 52% win rate, but in Diamond it's just not feasible. So what I want you to do, if you've had a look at this list a little bit, like I know I'm blocking Nico myself right now, so you got the bits cranking Yuumi behind my head. So this is the tier 1 at the top. I know I didn't really go through it like one by one. I want to just do a huge overview of the current situation of what I would want you to do in your solo queue games. I want you to lean, this is not a toxic mentality, I want you to lean more towards solo carry. Now, I don't want you to have the mentality of like, okay, like all my teammates are absolutely garbage, I must carry myself, etc. But it's just that the raw damage that a Brand and a Zyra in particular can give, or even leaning towards some of these other AP mages such as the Xerath, the Lux, kind of. She's a good utility hybrid between the enchanter and the mage. And Swain. Those champions are particularly good in the Iron to Gold. Now, they fall off heavily. Some of those champions at least fall off heavily once you start approaching the plat and the diamond. But if you only really care about hitting silver, hitting bronze, hitting gold, even hitting like low plat, I would highly recommend learning these champions and playing them in your solo queue games because they're just extremely strong. It's honestly, you're losing LP by not playing these champions. I think a lot of people will say that it's a toxic mentality to have, to feel like in a support role you're not actually technically like supporting your team, when you could be playing like an enchanter by buffing up your team, or playing a tank that can utilize like more crowd control. But in the lower ELOs, honestly, damage is king. If you can off-put your full combo on brand, you're going to kill multiple people, and you are just the support, essentially. So, yeah, I want you to encourage yourself, if you're not already, to play some more of these AP mages. I would preference the brand the most. I'm assuming he will probably get banned a little bit in solo queue in the lower ELOs in particular from this now. But the Zarya is an extremely good option. Xerath is as well, and so is Swain. Swain is a little bit different than the other mages. He moves into more of a tank role into the mid game with his ultimate. But the Xerath is another really good option as well. Or the Nico. You can move into the Nico as well, or potentially the Lux as well. So I want you to focus on like these kind of champions if you're in the low ELO. If you're adamant about playing enchanters in iron to gold, my recommendation would be Nami or Sona. So Sona is got the multiplier effect kind of like the Yuumi and the Lulu, but the difference is between those is Sona scales extremely well into the game as the game gets longer and longer, and she buffs up the entire team rather than just one individual. That's the benefit that Sona has over those other ones. Now, if you want to play tanks, Leona is by far the best tank option that you have. Not only is she extremely good in like the very like low ELOs of like iron and bronze, but she's extremely good in diamond. And honestly, you could learn Leona, and it would be a very good staple to have in your entire champion pool. The Alistair as well is another really solid tank. He's been doing pretty well at the moment, and so is the Nautilus. Once again, you can still play those champions in diamonds. So the tank roles overall, honestly, you can learn them and you'll be good to go throughout your entire LoL career if you learn those three champions. Once you start approaching like platinum and diamond, if you can get there, then stuff like the Thresh becomes much more powerful. People will actually click your lanterns. You'll understand how to engage and use him more often. He's squishier than like the Nautilus, so you need to understand when to engage better. So that is why Thresh is still an extremely good pick in general overall if you are extremely good on him. But he just falls off compared to those other tanks because they're just simply easier to play and just tankier. Now we've got some other champions dotted around here, as you can probably tell. The Janna is still a suitable pick as well. I would prefer slightly the Nami over the Janna, but once again, it's a suitable enchanter pick. Lulu is still a very good pick in general to crowd control a single target and to keep people alive if you're adamant once again about playing Lulu. I'd say in the gold ELO, she might be dipping down into more to tier 3 still. We'll see how this buff does with her. But, you know, Shrillies on the Lulu is still a decent pick overall. It's nothing too terrible. But, you know, if you're playing with a duo partner and they're playing Vayne or something like that, or the new Kog'Maw, if that ends up being meta, then the Lulu pick is going to be standing out a little bit more. Bard in the tier 2. He is a really, really good pick. I should have put him down into tier 3 actually for this specific guide. So yeah, that Bard pick actually probably tier 3 for this, just because you shouldn't be playing Bard until gold minimum, plat plus ideally for Bard. It's just going to be way over your head, and I wouldn't want you to focus on that too much. And also, you know, teammates won't utilize the tunnels and things like that properly as well. So Bard actually probably tier 3. So sorry for having that in tier 2. Brom is an interesting pick to have in tier 2. He's like a Janna version of a tank. I think if you are very good mechanically on Brom, I think he's in an okay place at the moment. The only thing that you would be concerned about is that your teammates following up on your stun, on your passive, in order to stun the enemy. But his win wall is extremely good if they have multiple like big projectiles on the enemy team. But under normal use, he also is probably a tier 3. So it does depend on the Brom pick on how many projectiles you can block. Like things like Ornn ultimate you can block. You know, maybe a couple of AD carry ultis as well, like a Jinx ult and things like that you can do a good job blocking. So, and Seraphine ulti he can block as well. So, you know, there's a couple of ideas there of when to pick Brom. If you like playing Brom and you feel like you're good mechanically on him. Otherwise, under normal use, he's probably a tier 3 pick as well. There's nothing else really I want to mention. I think Morgana, I think I brushed over. I think Morgana's a pretty good solo queue pick at the moment anyway, because people don't know if she's going to be played in the jungle or not. In the gold ELO in particular, you can like use her as a pick to play mental mind games on the enemy team, them not necessarily knowing whether it's Morgana jungle or not. And she's doing particularly well at the moment. I know she received a nerf, but I still think she's going to be pretty good in the jungle. And that nerf was only targeted at jungle Morgana as well. And she does well with the stuff like the Caitlyn as well in the lane. Like the double binding lanes are very, very strong. So, you know, she gets edges up to tier 2, and she's not too particularly difficult to play either. But yeah, it might be a bit of a shock to a lot of people. It's just that mages are way too strong right now. I think, you know, there's a lot of understanding about that too as well. Brand is very, very broken at the moment. I released a brand guide on Monday about him. So if you want to learn how to play Brand, there's an extensive guide that will be relevant to you now if you are interested. The Zyra is also a really good pick as well. But yeah, I want you, if you really just want to climb in terms of LP, then honestly just purely look at the mages for now and don't worry about taking kills. If you are adamant about not playing major supports, which, you know, which is totally fine, I get it. Like, you can still definitely climb with the enchanters and tanks. It's just easier with the mages. It's going to take more games. But, you know, I've given you some options of what kind of enchanters you're looking at, depending roughly on what ELO you are. You know, if you are Diamond Plus and you're looking at a support tier list, I would be a little bit concerned for you. But the best things I can suggest for you, I think the Brand and Zyra are still very good picks in Diamond if you're able to play them. But in the Diamond ELO, you're going to see more people play tanks. So like stuff like the Leona and Alistair and Nautilus and Brom and Thresh become pretty good picks. Bard's a very, very good pick as well in Diamond. Probably the best pick in Diamond Plus, honestly, right now is probably Bard. And in terms of enchanters, Lulu in the Diamond Plus is going to be extremely strong. And the Jan is also pretty good as well in the peak ELOs. And Yuumi potentially as well. Yuumi comes up from tier 3, closer, much closer towards that tier 1 in high ELO as well, which is I would deem as Diamond Plus. I think in the future I'm going to see if I can try and make a better infographic just to make it look a bit easier. Maybe 2 separate infographics for both low ELO and high ELO. So I do apologize for any graphic complications, but as I mentioned, it is only kind of like a recent, like, you know, epiphany or something that I had that, you know, made me realize that, you know, you guys necessarily shouldn't be playing some of these enchanters, in particular in the iron and the bronze ELO, because honestly, you like they're much more of you know, a buff. But if you're buffing nothing, then your buffs aren't worth anything. So technically, then you're nothing, and that's not meant to like have to have a weak mentality or, you know, feel like that all your teams are just crap, so you just need to solo carry. That's not at all what I want you to have the mentality of. I just want you to have the mentality of that you have more control over what happens in your games. So you're going to have more kill potential. You're going to do more damage on those neutral objectives. You're going to do more damage in the team fights. And honestly, many people make more positional mistakes, not only in team fights, but also in the laning phase, and you'll be able to potentially exploit that. And then as you get higher in the ELO, then more of those enchanters and more of those tanks options become available to you around about the gold and plat. And then ironically, again, it then narrows down a bit, but usually like, you know, into the more of the specific tanks or the specific enchanters if you're diamond plus. So it's kind of funny how, you know, mages at the start, then you're moving on to like the mix of enchanters and tanks with the mages occasionally played, and then largely at the end it's more of the roaming supports that are able to be played around the map, and you know, the occasional single buffing enchanters just because the AD carriers are just better in high ELO. So good luck in your solo queue games. I hope you try out the mages and give them a try, and wish you all the best. And you know, if you are adamant about not playing those mages just because it's not deemed as support, just give them a try. Even if it's just for a few games, you might change your mind, honestly. You might have a lot of fun playing those as well. So take care, good luck in the next 2 weeks. I'll see you again in 2 weeks time for another tier list, and I'll potentially make a better infographic for you. So take care, guys. Bye bye.